Hello, Tar Heel Nation. Welcome back to another episode of UNC Hoops Talk podcast. I'm your host, Dan DeWitt, and we're just back here just kind of having a conversation. It's not quite a month since Roy Williams has retired. Obviously, about 3 weeks since Hubert Davis has been hired, and just kind of get on. If there's any questions, we're going to be jumping in, answering any questions you guys have. As best we can. And I say we, obviously it's just me right now if you're watching the video. But I think Gil is going to be hopping on here shortly, and possibly Blake as well. If you've been watching the podcast, you have seen them on here lately, as we have been doing a little more of these live podcasts, going back and forth and talking with them and stuff. So they should be in, but this is as good as any of a reminder that if you would like to ask questions as we podcast or as I podcast or whoever it may be, a lot of times do this live on YouTube. And if you subscribe to UNC Hoops Talk on YouTube and hit that little bell notification, you should get a notification anytime we go live, and you can hop in, ask questions, join the conversation. If anybody wants to come out on video, and just chat and ask questions or whatever tonight, we can make that happen. I can send you the link, and you should be able to hop on and ask questions that way. But yeah, I just thought we'd kind of catch up. I know, again, it's only been a few weeks since we podcast, and we're kind of getting into off-season mode, where I think I announced last time, where it's kind of once a month. But again, just kind of thought we jump on. There's still news to be updated on. I think since the last time we podcasted, the staff has been completed. The basketball staff has been completed for Hubert Davis, and we've gotten a couple of transfers out of the transfer portal. So 300, welcome. Good to see you tonight. We're just kind of talking tonight, updating and a Q&A, answering any questions and stuff like that. So glad you're here. Good to see you. And yeah, we're just kind of talk. Hopefully Gil will be here, and we'll just have kind of a conversation going. Looks like Blake is not gonna be able to get it. So 300 says, glad we're getting shooters. Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. Since we last podcasted, we got Justin Mccoy, a transfer from Virginia. He's out of North Carolina. Originally he had committed to Penn State, decommitted from there, went to Virginia. He's been there. I feel like he's been there 2 years, but with the freebie year this year, he's got 3 years of eligibility left as he comes to us in Chapel Hill. He's a small ball, not even a small ball four, but I guess he can step away, spread the floor. What do we call that now? I know there's a phrase we've been saying, but I'm going to say spread four, but whatever. And then, yeah, so you can't handle the Truth podcast. The pickup from OU was huge. Brady Manick out of Oklahoma, a 4-year starter for Oklahoma. This is how crazy it is to me, anyway. Oh, there it is. Stretch four. Grant Bowden says, "Hey Dan, I've been thinking about what the Heels need more: a stretch four or a conventional big man. Your thoughts?" So yeah, we'll get to that here in a second. But thank you, 300, to stretch four. Justin McCoy is a little bit of stretch four, but is, like I said, younger, has 3 years of eligibility left. Brady Manick is definitely, but it's crazy to me to think that he came in with man, I'm forgetting everybody's name now. Trey, the point guard that plays for the Hawks now. Again, you guys will help me out here, but he came in the same year. He showed some promise that freshman year, and then he hasn't produced a lot. His junior year, he was pretty good, and Trey Young, there we go. 300, you're on it tonight. Thank you. But yeah, he came in with him, showed some promise. His junior year was pretty good. I guess he dealt with COVID pretty bad this year, lost a lot of weight and all that. And but he has hit several, 230 some threes. I think if he would have done all that at North Carolina, he'd be like third all time behind Marcus Page and Joel Berry ahead of Shamad Williams. So obviously, a different era than Shamad played in. So not that he has the accuracy that Shamad did, but he can knock down the three. So definitely a stretch four there, and a big body as well. Still rebounds the ball decently well. Obviously, he hasn't been ingrained how important rebounding is, as somebody at North Carolina would be. But he can still rebound the ball. So he's definitely a big get for next year, is Brady Manick out of Oklahoma. And then, hopefully Justin McCoy, his numbers don't look great at Virginia, obviously a slower pace. He didn't get a lot of run there. So hopefully he can kind of grow and be that stretch four we need going forward. So kind of back to Grant's question here is, what do we need more, a stretch four or conventional big man? Well, right now with Armando Bacot still in the NBA draft, technically, I think he comes back. But if for whatever reason he stays in the draft, obviously a conventional big man becomes more important. We have to get that feel. We need one. But yeah, if Bacot comes back, this is a nice lineup for Bacot because the way Manick can spread the floor for us, it'll open up the floor for Caleb's driving. So he's got the drive and dish. He can, obviously kick it out to the corner. Hopefully that's where Manick is, or Walton is, Kerwin Walton. Obviously we haven't lost him. So, now we have two shooters, but it opens it up with a big guy stepping out to the 3-point line, and, a proven one at that. So we know guys have to go out and guard him. So it opens up for Caleb. It's going to open up a lot of room for Bacot in the middle. If he can stay out of foul trouble, he can put up some monster numbers. We think about, he was probably our MVP last year. He was the most consistent. He was really good last year. And so if he can get that same productivity, and then he's kind of the only one down low putting up those numbers. Think about the rebounds that are there without Walker Kessler, Brooks, forgetting one of the big guys now, but Sharp, Padewan Sharp. So there's a lot of rebounds for him to get down low. So, all right, we got Gil in here. How's it going, Gil?
Hey, Dan, what's up?
Not much. So yeah, we're just answering questions here right now. We're kind of talking about the transfer we've gotten since the last time we podcasted. Obviously, we've gotten Justin McCoy from Virginia, a stretch four that will probably be a little bit more for the future coming, if he can develop in the next couple of years. And Brady Manick out of Oklahoma, big guy that has proven to knock down the three at Oklahoma. So he's coming in, will help us open up the floor for Caleb Love's drives. And also, I was just talking about Bacot and how much production there is for him to have next year, with all the space that he's got to have. And then the rebounds that, other guys were getting. He wasn't a bad rebounder already, but just the rebounds that will be there for him. He could put up some monster numbers next year.
Yeah, I think there's no one happier with the addition of Manick than potentially Bacot, assuming that he returns, which I seem to hear that that's a likely scenario, but you never know. But yeah, that's an exciting signing, and I think McCoy could, from what I've heard, all things, he's going to work his tail off, and he'll do some great things in the Carolina uniform as well.
Yeah, so I was kind of answering Grant's question here is what do we need more, a stretch four and a conventional big man? So, and I kind of said, well, obviously if Bacot doesn't come back, a conventional big man would be the bigger need there since we got those two stretch fours. But if Bacot comes back, we got Manick for next year. We got McCoy going forward. What do you think? What would be a bigger need there? Get another stretch four in there, or do we need a more conventional big man to kind of back up Bacot? And then, if he puts up those monster numbers next year, he probably is going to the NBA, a conventional big going forward.
Yeah, we have, 2 scholarships remaining?
Yeah, we got 2 left for this year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. We filled the need for the stretch four with the 2 players that you just spoke of. And, Manick's got 1 year of eligibility, correct?
Yeah, Manick just has 1.
Yeah, and McCoy should have 3, I believe.
3.
So, you want to sign another one, I think, at least if not this year, for next year, or, for the following season. But, finding a big is not an easy thing to do, particularly in the transfer portal. How many are in there that are, what you're looking for? So I know there's a lot of talk about that. Should we find a need? Well, obviously, it does hinge on what Bacot decides. You got a much bigger need if he opts, to declare. But if he's coming back, then how much are you really using? Can Manic fill in? Can these stretch fours fill in for that backup role for spot minutes? So I'm not sure what all's out there, but I like the idea of filling the team with shooters, and I think that's what Hubert's shown that's his intention.
Well, and that's been a lot of the talk is too. We don't know what Hubert wants to run. We kind of assume he wants at least one kind of big guy in there, but there's nothing to say that he wouldn't go 5 out. If like you said, Manic is the 5, and we got 5 guys that can shoot the ball. We've seen that against us, where how deadly it can be when you got to guard everybody out to the 3-point line, and how much that can open up the lane and driving and everything else. So we don't really know. We can kind of assume that with the system that he's grown up in under Dean Smith and Roy Williams and stuff like that, he wants a big, but he may be willing to go 5 out, which would be pretty crazy to see at North Carolina, I think. But
and it'd be interesting too. Caleb Love has good height. RJ Davis is, he's more diminutive. So are those two going to play side by side? Because you got good rebounding potentially from your guard position with Caleb Love in there, but much less so with RJ in there. So, I think in recent years when Roy has opted to go with the smaller lineup, that lineup tended to fare pretty well overall. And, Carolina Roy Williams particularly emphasized rebounding so heavily that I always just trust that they're gonna do well on the glass. So I like the idea of filling up the team with players that are a little bit more versatile.
Yeah. So 300 said there he is. He's talking about you, Gil, since you hopped on there. He said he's happy for Hubert. He misses Roy already. Yeah, I still that first game there, or exhibition, whatever it happens to be with Hubert there is just. I don't think it's going to be as weird as it could have been if it was somebody else. But even with Hubert there, it's gonna look weird without Roy on the sideline there. So Grant says, "Can you imagine being able to light it up from the outside?" It's been a while there. And then he also says, "Our big men would have more room to work if the lane wasn't clogged with defenders." So yeah, I mean, you said how happy Bacot should be with the Manic signing, but I think Caleb Love is kind of right there. If Bacot's 1A, I think Caleb's 1B. With we saw how much trouble he had last year getting into the lane and running into big guys. If he can get to that big guy and dump it off to Bacot, or he's got a shooter in the corner, I mean it's gonna as long as he can make the right read and put the ball where it needs to be, like he could go from hurting his stock to really jumping up there and proving to what he can be.
It is a tantalizing thing to consider. And I do think you're right. Opening up the lane was so huge. And I think that's probably one of the biggest issues, along with injuries 2 years ago, that's led to the situation the past 2 seasons.
Yeah. And so Grant Bowden mentions Trey Mitchell. I don't know the name Trey Mitchell, if that's a somebody in the transfer portal out there. You're talking about big guys that are out there. I haven't heard that name. So Grant, if you want to fill us in there. And then one other one I put out on Twitter earlier today to anybody to ask questions or what they wanted us to talk about. And I need to probably get it right here, who it was. I think I can do it quick enough. But it's at BD Heel Fan on Twitter. Wanted to make sure we talked about Efton Reed. And I don't know if you know the name. I know we don't follow recruiting as closely as Blake and a lot of people do, but Efton Reed is a big 6'11", 245-pound. They call him power forward here in the article that I quickly pulled up here, but ESPN said 6'11", 240, but a big guy out of Virginia, and he goes to IMG Academy, which we know is where Bacot came from, but he'll be class of 2021. So that means come in next year if we could get him.
That would be a good get.
And we don't know what exactly Hubert's looking for. A 245-pounder is a pretty big guy. When we think of the Carolina system, we think of running up and down and remember Kennedy Meeks having to lose weight like 3 off seasons in a row just to kind of get where Roy wanted him. And so, you kind of wonder, I don't know, I don't follow recruiting enough to, know his agility and, all that stuff about him, but definitely a big body that's out there, our traditional big, but if we're going to continue kind of the Carolina system, you'd think he's got to get up and down the floor a little bit at least.
Yeah, for sure. But it never hurts to have guys that can come in there and bang for a few.
Exactly. Joel James, there's a spot for somebody like that. Even, the young Kennedy Meeks, who maybe wasn't getting a lot of the minutes, but came in and, banged guys around and stuff. So Grant says this must be Trey Mitchell. He's a 6'9", good shooter, good rebounder in the portal. So, it says from Massachusetts here, but speaking of the portal, I don't know. First, I guess I want to kind of back up a little bit since you came in late. I was going to start the podcast this way, but it's been less than a month since Roy has retired. It's been about 3 weeks since Hubert's been hired. We've had plenty of movement. We've already talked about the moves he's made, how aggressive he's been. But how are you feeling at this point? Kind of like 300 said, it's still sad to kind of think Roy's gone, but at this very quick point of Hubert's career here, how are you feeling about it all?
Yeah, well, Roy, Hall of Famer, did so much for the Carolina program. Just gratitude can't be expressed. There's just not words. With all that said, and with all due respect, I have a lot of excitement. Going into an off season, you're always excited about what's coming in, what's new, what's fresh. Who are the players that are being signed, who's the next class, and so you're really excited about who those next players are. You're also excited about how the players that are on the current roster are going to develop. And this year we have that extra added new coach, so there's a lot of like what could be. There's a lot of potential, and I think early signs of what we've seen, how Hubert's been active in the transfer portal, who he's brought in. It may not give us every indication that we need, but I think there's a lot of signs pointing towards a more open style of play. I think the position that he played, in his career, and being the kind of quality shooter that he was in his career, he's gonna look to emphasize that in the Tar Heel program. So I have a lot of excitement right now. Of course, this is generally somewhat of a dead time or a lull time where I'm just like ready for information. Like, oh my God, it's been 2 weeks since they signed a guy out of the portal. Like, give me some information, So I have that like, man, when's it going to be October already, kind of feeling. But I'm really looking forward to, there's like this slight tepid, a little nervous about how it's going to go those first few games, and definitely going to be different with, so many new faces on the sideline because, I don't know how much you've talked even about the staff that's come in, who wasn't retained, etc. So there's going to be a lot of new, and new is exciting, but also new means that there's a lot of moving parts that needs to figure out their way, not only players on the court, but coaches on the sideline. So I think we have to temper some expectations and understand that there's going to be a few bumps in the road there too, but a lot of excitement for the future of Carolina basketball.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think everybody feels it. I think we do have to kind of temper, like you said, a little bit, because even after even after this first year, like it looks like we have a nice team for next year, but then we got to go and do it all over again. He's got to, like we said, bring in somebody else. If Baycott leaves, we need another big guy in there. If, Leakey's going to be graduating. If Caleb leaves, we got to make sure we got another point guard that's kind of ready. And, we saw kind of with Matt Doherty and even with Guthridge, they came in, obviously Dean Smith left a lot for Guthridge. They went to the Final Four, and then it's kind of starting to make your own mark on the program and all that. And when Doherty came in, I mean, we were ranked #1 under Doherty. I think he got National Coach of the Year his first year at North Carolina. And then obviously we know what happened from there. So I think obviously there's excitement. We got to make sure we give Hubert the time that he needs. We got to be patient with him. And also, I don't think we have to kind of put the pressure on him. I think he feels that, and he, like they always say, they want it more than we do, as much as it disappoints us to lose. And as much as we want it, usually the players and coaches want it that much more. But yeah, you mentioned the staff, and that's where I wanted to go. We got a few other recruiting. I don't want this just to be kind of a recruiting and roster talk here. We can jump around a little bit, but I think we knew that Kendall Marshall wasn't being retained the last time we podcast. I think we kind of had suspicions that Steve Robinson wouldn't, but I don't know if we mentioned that. So those two guys were not retained by Hubert Davis. And then so we moved Sean May onto the assistant bench. Again, we may have known that the last podcast too. I don't know. And then we hired, I guess we kept Brad Frederick as well. He's still be an assistant on the bench for Coach Davis. And then we got Jeff Lebo to come in as, I believe he's considered the head assistant to Hubert Davis, his kind of lead assistant, if you will. And then just, was it yesterday was announced that Pat Sullivan will be, I don't even know his actual, he'll be over player development, I think is what it is, which it kind of makes sense what he's been doing in the NBA for the last whatever number of years it's been. So did I miss anybody in the staff there?
Jackie Manuel.
Oh yeah. Jackie Manuel. And he's not a full assistant either, right? He's the director of operations.
Maybe sliding into what Sean May was doing.
I believe so. So he comes over from the women's side of North Carolina. So yeah, I mean, and Hubert kind of said it in his press conference. He wanted guys from different eras. I think we're getting that with, Pat Sullivan, Jeff Lebo, a little bit, I know, older than my kind of remembering or my fandom goes. And then obviously Jackie Manuel off the 05 team with Sean May. I guess you could say we're missing a couple of gaps in there, but there's only so many positions you got.
So he did what he said, and so, I mean, that's a good sign too. It shows recruits that, he sticks to his word. So that's a positive thing that, Carolina fans can also resonate with, and backtracking just slightly, you mentioned about, Hubert having to start over. We should be in pretty good shape for this coming season. What about the next? But I think that's just the landscape of college basketball is this new roster management level. You throw in that like super senior season, which I guess will go on for the next 3 years or something like that. You mentioned that Leakey might graduate, but he could come back for an additional year of eligibility, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think, we could consider him a junior this coming year. The seniors next year, I guess, they're the super seniors, but they, obviously won't get another year. But I guess the people that would be seniors, I don't know.
Everyone on the roster has that potential.
Right.
How many of them will do it or take advantage of it, or how many of them will take advantage of it and transfer somewhere else? I mean, it's all going to continue to just fall out for a few seasons here. Right. And until they change any rules of the transfer portal, that'll be something to keep an eye on. But it's definitely something that, and that's where, again, with all due respect to Roy, having someone younger in the position and a little bit younger staff, I'm not sure what the average age of our staff was and what it is now, but I think that they're going to be a little bit more well-equipped to kind of handle the changing dynamics of roster management and the landscape.
Right. Yeah. This transfer portal thing, it'll be interesting to see what happens every year. Hopefully it goes down a little bit because you don't have the super seniors that can stay next year. But how many guys leave and how hard you have to recruit your guys to come back. And the roster and we aren't used to transfers at North Carolina, but we did take in a couple of grad transfers. So I think, we throw out numbers, all these recruits, and the grass is always greener, and that guy is always such a shooter. And you still have to have, we used to talk about team chemistry, and like, it used to be a thing where like, oh man, this team has all the talent. What's wrong? And it's like, well, it's the chemistry to it. So it's going to be interesting. This plays out here.
Well said. And I think that's something that's been lacking too. And, what do you see of the teams that make it? I mean, look at Baylor from this past year, a team that actually had some of that chemistry. I think that's so crucial to make a deep run.
Yeah. So 300 here says, well said. I don't know exactly what he's referring to, but he agrees with us wholeheartedly. So that's good. And he also says Hubert's got a lot of room for now. You can't handle the truth. Rope, sorry. And you can't handle the truth says we got to give him at least 3 years. I think he's got a 5-year contract, right? I feel like I saw somewhere it was 5 years. So I just got another question off Twitter here. Michael Quick off of Twitter says, do you think Hubert should ask Sterling Manley to come back and be the backup center?
Fair question. It's tough to see. Someone made a good point in one of the podcasts I was listening to when Walker Kessler finally, decided he was going to Auburn, around the pressure that was this new added pressure had he returned to Carolina after saying he was moving. Now, it's a little different with him than Sterling Manley because he wanted to show that he was a stretch, big. And so there was going to be a lot of pressure for him to perform. With Sterling Manley, I don't think there would be that much pressure for him to come in, to return as a backup center role. But is that what he wants? You know what I mean? He probably had these reasons for why he wanted to exit, and that was probably to get more playing time. But it's a worthwhile exploration. It sounds good in theory.
Well, and I don't know if you saw, there was an Instagram video that kind of went around. He was playing some pickup at some rec league or whatever, and threw down some dunks and had some blocks, and he looked like he was back to where he was healthy enough. Now, of course, the competition isn't ACC caliber when you're playing pickup
at the YMCA.
Yeah. So, and like you said, like he probably wants to go and get a chance to play a lot of minutes. And if your pitch is come be the backup, and it's like you're not committing to him for the next 3 years, whereas if you bring in a guy from high school or a transfer that has 3 years left, you're not saying, hey, be the backup for this year, and the next 2 years you're kind of the guy. So it's a harder sell, I think, for something like that. And
he's had the Carolina experience, which I'm sure that's a good thing. And at the same time, he's ready to see something else. Like you said, sometimes the grass is greener. Will it actually be? Maybe not. But it's almost easier to pull someone in that's like, hey, you get an opportunity to play for Carolina.
Right. Well, I mean, Huffman this last year went to Jacksonville State, I think it was, and he had a nice season. I think they barely missed. I think they were the 1 seed in their conference and got upset in the conference tournament, so they didn't make the tournament. But I mean, he had a nice season, and probably, obviously it looked like he was having a lot of fun at Carolina, but he probably just wanted to, have a chance to play college basketball and see what he could do.
Him up and get out there on the court.
So you can't handle it. I'm going back here. I don't know if you're looking at the chat at all, but you can't handle the truth. Said I want to see what role Leakey will play this year. I think the style change will open things up for him because he's more of a slasher, in my opinion. What do y'all think? And so I was listening to what was it, Inside Carolina, not the Jones and Angel one, but I think it's Inside Carolina, right? I always get those mixed up. And I think it was Sherrill McMillan that said, or maybe it was Greg Barnes off of there, that said, if we have Caleb Love, who is a slasher, and and a scorer from the point guard position, and you got Kerwin Walton, who's a shooter, you got Brady Manick, who's a shooter, big guy in there rebounding, and then we got Armando Bacot down low. There's plenty of scoring there. What do we need there? And it's kind of that glue guy, and who's perfect to fit that role, or who's better to fit that role maybe than Leakey Black, where he can defend and handle the ball a little bit, distribute, kind of be a Theo. Obviously we don't think at this point. I know he's been compared a lot to Theo, and he could be in that role. I don't think he's that talented, but there's position or there's an opportunity there for him to kind of maybe concentrate on all those other things as opposed to, hey, you got to knock down the shot because you're wide open. If we got enough other guys out there, then maybe it takes that pressure off of him, and it may be just the right position. He may be just the right guy that we need, the Jackie Manuel, somebody that's not thinking about offense and, doing those other things. So, he's gotten a lot of hate.
Yeah, he sure has. And, this is what I like to say about that. Like you said earlier, he has the want. He wants to be a good offensive player, I'm sure. And another offseason working with Hubert, working on a shot, maybe we see that percentage go up, just the 3 to 5 percentage points that we desperately would like to see for him, and that could be huge. But yeah, all he needs to do is provide, a balanced stat line, 8 to 10 rebounds, 2 to 3 steals, 3 to 5 assists, and then whatever points he can chip in, and that's giving quality minutes, if you ask me.
Yep. Yep. I think, again, like he's gotten all the hate. It would be kind of I don't know, poetic to come in and just have a, hope. I mean, again, maybe he stays another year, it's his super senior year or whatever, but kind of have a nice season here, and him to kind of show everybody what he's had, because you go back and you remember he was injured a lot as a freshman, and and from there he's always, like, every offseason it seems like people are like, he's the X factor, he's the guy that's got to step up, he determines how good this team's going to be, and a lot of that stuff. So
And I think he was injured a lot in his sophomore season too, and played through a lot of it. He's athletic enough, he's long enough, I think he can bring something valuable to the table. I believe in him. I believed in him last season. Did he have games that he didn't produce enough? Sure. I mean, that reminded me of, like, sometimes JP Tokoto or Bryce Johnson and their, freshman and sophomore seasons, where they just didn't really bring a lot to the table, but they continued to develop. Well, Tokoto left the program, but Bryce Johnson's senior season was amazing.
Yeah.
And so could we get something, not quite that level, but, still an advancement in his game? I think we could.
Yep. So we got Ian the Sheepdog has jumped in and joins. Thanks for jumping in. He's got a few comments here. He says we're loaded in the backcourt. He's feeling good about the season. So we kind of answered this already. Will Baycott come back? I think he does. I don't know what percentage I would even put it at, but he would have to. I don't know. I don't even know what it would take for him to stay in. Maybe like a first round guarantee. There's someone we haven't talked about is Day'Ron Sharpe. There's I don't know if Blake wrote it, but on keepingtheheel.com, there was an article of his stock dropping and could he come back? Again, I don't see Sharpe coming back. I don't know what your opinion is on it. I don't think Sharpe comes back, but I do think Baycott's back almost certainly.
So it's tough to put my confidence on, what to say about that. I'm got my fingers crossed, and definitely hoping for it, because it fills the roster.
Interesting thing about Day'Ron Sharpe is, and I don't know if I can find it, but there is a website, I think it is, that will sell like former college guys gear, like some of their jerseys. If they keep like one and they sell, and then if they get so many of them or whatever, and they kind of want to keep one for themselves, they can sell shorts and shoes, game worn uniforms and shoes and stuff like that. And so I think they profit. This website kind of puts them up on auction. And Day'Ron Sharpe stuff is going up. I think it's tonight, actually. It's probably gone, or I think it was 8:00 or something tonight. So he had his auction going up where he had like game worn uniform and shoes and stuff going up. So I would assume, this year it's different. They can sign with agents and still come back. But I would assume if you're making money like that, if you're selling some of your old stuff and getting paid for it, that it would hinder, not that he could maybe take a suspension and come back, but I think that kind of seals the deal.
I don't think that's ever happened before.
No one would sell any winnings or rings or anything like that, or give them for tattoos, right? Wasn't that the Ohio State stuff? Weren't they getting tattoos? Right. They wouldn't have been making money from it. So I'm the Sheepdog says, I see Manuel like a Luke May, maybe better. I think he's a little bit different than Luke May. I think he's probably a little bit better rebounder. He's a little bit taller. I don't know. How tall was Luke May?
I think he is taller.
I was going to say, I think he's like 6'10" or something. So I think he's a little bit bigger than
6'10", and Luke May was what? 6'8" on a good day?
Yeah, I think so. I think listed at 6'8", so probably 6'7", 6'6.5". So here's somebody we haven't talked about. Oh, go ahead if you want to finish that.
I was just going to say, I think we're all excited about Manuel and what he brings, the body type that he brings, an athletic stretch forward, the ability to knock down threes. I forget what the stats are. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but the number of made threes that he has.
Yeah, I mentioned that before you were on. He would be like third at North Carolina in all-time threes made.
Yeah, so that's a fantastic fit.
And he's got the mustache.
Totally.
The shaggy hair, Larry Bird look.
Yeah, Carolina's needed a white guy out there on the perimeter knocking down some shots a la Jeff Lebo.
There we go. All right, so someone we haven't talked about here, Anthony Harris is an X factor. So it is kind of interesting, where does Anthony Harris fit in? Because this will be his third year at Carolina now. By then, you're usually kind of thinking, hey, where's my starting spot? On a normal trajectory. By the time you're a junior, you're kind of like, I should be, sixth man, or I kind of need a starting spot here. So does he get enough minutes to feel happy? Where does he fit in on this roster, do you think?
Yeah, I think he is an X factor. I think I'm glad that Grant mentioned him. Hopefully, this last season, I feel like we all just kind of gave him a pass on, all right, good. You've recovered from your injury. Just stay healthy, get experience. Now there will be some expectations for him when he comes in to be very productive. And I think there were definitely times when he would come in and he'd bring a lot of great energy. And there were other games, so you got the full experience of an ACC season where he didn't produce as much. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting with RJ, Caleb, and Anthony Harris to fill in. But I think
here's another one, Puff Johnson, that we'd kind of, we got a lot of guys that are going to want minutes here.
Yeah, that's true.
We just talked about this transfer rule where they can transfer out and play right away. Like, we talk about the guys that we can get, we can kind of reload from it, but we also could lose some guys, which is going to be, I think, hard for a lot of Tar Heel fans, is seeing guys go, and not be bitter about it. It's something we're going to have to get used to and whatever. But we can see guys go as quickly as we see guys come in. We haven't mentioned the freshmen coming in yet either, Dunn and Styles. So, it's hard to name all these names off and still think we got 2 spots open that we could give scholarships to.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I think you would expect Puff to get minutes behind Leakey. That's would be my expectation with him. But if he can break out and really produce, then maybe he gets a lot more playing time than we expect. But yeah, we do have a slight wealth of riches there on the backcourt, which is actually really pleasant to see.
Yeah, so kind of like the way too early polls that we see come out and rankings that we already see come out, our way too early starting lineup, we're assuming, is Caleb Love, Kerwin Walton, Leakey Black, Manic, and then Baycott. So, like you said, RJ is probably the backup to Caleb, right? And so Anthony Harris would have to be the backup to Kerwin Walton. And like you said, Puff, hopefully the backup. And obviously 2 3s can be interchangeable in our system. Again, we don't know what Hubert's running, but we're kind of used to the 2-3 being interchangeable. So, but Puff Johnson kind of being the backup for Leakey Black. We got Mccoy backing up Manic. And we kind of saw this year we maybe don't want 4 bigs, but kind of the 3 big rotation there where maybe Manic plays a little bit of 5 when McCoy and him are in together. I don't think I'm missing another big. And then obviously, again, like we said, the 2 freshmen coming in. I don't know exactly what positions they play. Are you well versed at all on our freshmen coming in?
Sadly, it's a little late here on the East Coast. I don't have it dialed in.
Yeah,
I think Dunn is a shooting guard, and Styles is.
I want to say one of them was maybe like a 4. They could fit into that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is more of kind of a wing player. So, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know it is getting late over there, and
no, it's all good. I just sorry, I don't have a better answer. I'm excited about those players, but I don't know their games 100%. But
going through that real quickly and kind of going back to kind of when you first joined here, knowing all that, if we only had 1 spot left, if say we give one of those scholarships to a walk-on for next year, what's 1 spot that we need to get yet? Is it the big that we were talking about earlier, either traditional or stretch? I mean, obviously, again, they can be interchangeable, but or is there
based
another
on that conversation that we just talked about with so many players there demanding playing time, hopefully, I think it's definitely got to be, in the front court. So I like the idea of getting another 4 that's like a tall 4 that can fill in at the backup center as needed, but not so much a classical center. Because that's just where I see the game going.
Yep. I mean, honestly, Walker Kessler was the perfect fit, right? I mean, he's tall enough that he can play the 5 easily and kind of get in there. He was a decent rebounder, shot blocker, all that stuff. And then if he wanted to be, step out and be a stretch 4 or stretch 5, whatever you want to call it, he would have been kind of perfect in there. But we can't harp on that too long or too much. But Yeah, something like that. I agree that something along those lines is kind of where we need to go. And as long as this transfer portal can go, we don't have to hurry it. We could wait to see if anybody, unexpected jumps in there.
It's true. They have until July 1st
to be in it, right? And then I don't know when they have to be signed. And probably just the first day of school, they have to be signed by someone.
Yeah. So I mean, we could see a school sign someone, and then someone at said school decides, "Hey, I'm moving out," and they still have that opportunity to move to the transfer portal. So,
yeah. So I'm the sheepdog says, I'm wondering that too. I feel we get a stretch. So he wants a stretch here, and then Eric House jumped in. Said, I think Leakey will need to reprove himself to Coach Hubert Davis. I think RJ improves. He could take Leakey's starting spot. So, yeah, we haven't really talked about that. Again, we don't know Hubert's style here exactly. Obviously, he knows the players. It's different than somebody from the outside the program coming in and inheriting all these players. He's worked with them. He can't say, like, you haven't developed like you should have, because he was partly responsible for the development of these players. But he wants Baycott, Manick, Walton, Love, and Davis to start. It looks like he would rather have Caleb Love at the 2 and RJ Davis playing the point guard position there. So
I like that starting lineup.
That's interesting. And again, yeah, it's not something we think about, but could Hubert Davis come in and demand different things of different guys? And I mean, maybe Kerwin Walton doesn't start. Maybe he, we know Roy always wanted that defensive dog in there, and that's kind of why we said, Leakey's going to start. Again, we suspect that he wants shooters, and obviously Walton has proved that he wants a shooter. So we feel like he's safe, but it's something. Yeah, it's again. We'll talk about this all the way until the season starts. Who's the starting lineup and who do we want and all this stuff. But
I actually think that the RJ and Caleb playing alongside one another might be our best recipe.
It got a lot better at the end of the season. When they did it at the beginning of the season, I think we saw a difference when Roy stopped doing that for a while. But then at the end of the year, it did seem like they were much more comfortable together. We'll see what the freshman to sophomore jump is. Of course, usually the biggest one out of the 4 years. So. I got Michael Quick here commented on Twitter. I don't know if he's watching. Michael, you should comment here on YouTube if you are. But he doesn't believe that. He says, somebody else commented, I guess, to his comment about Sterling Manley, and he said you don't believe Manley can help because I see a video. See, that's what talking about where he looks very healthy right now. But again, those videos out on Instagram and stuff don't. Kind of like we saw with transfers, don't always translate into production in an ACC caliber schedule and all that stuff. So again, not that I don't want to harp on that Sterling Manley couldn't do it. I think he had the tools, but
if I were to reflect on Justin Pierce and Christian Keeling, for me, their trajectory throughout the season that they were with the Tar Heels was much like a freshman. They were just like learning how to play ACC basketball.
Yeah, it was like starting all over.
Yeah, it was. But the transfers we have coming in with Manick and Mccoy, a little less so, having not played as much, but getting more playing time at the end of last season. He had a COVID. Both those players, I think, missed some time with COVID. I think we got players that are going to be instant impact, and we're going to see not so much of that trajectory, but right away helping us out.
Yeah, and again, it depends how much time you have with guys, but as much turnovers as can be, like you almost have to see that production right away because otherwise you're going to get left in the dust, or or someone else is going to leave you in the dust.
Yeah, there's enough players on this roster, unlike the 2019 team, that if you're not producing, then
if you were healthy, you were getting minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
hopefully that does motivate everybody, including Leakey Black, to really show that he demands that time on the court.
Yep. All right. So I think we've had a pretty good conversation here. I'm the Sheepdog says I think he's talking about Eric's lineup there with RJ and Caleb next to each other. Good outside shooting lineup. Yeah. I mean, you take Leakey Black out and I mean, obviously RJ Davis was shooting the ball better than Leakey was. It just adds another threat from out there. And again, hopefully he's got the development from freshman to sophomore year. Again, we don't need to get into it, but the whole COVID thing too, we talked about chemistry. Hopefully the chemistry is better because they're able to spend more time together outside of basketball even. And, and getting the off season in here for the guys last year. We think of Caleb Love and RJ and Kerwin and all these guys. They didn't have an off season last year. So maybe the jump's even bigger than that. But he says he likes Davis at the 1, feels like he's a Joel Berry clone there. And then Grant kind of says, I hope guys play a lot of ball together, get used to each other over the summer. And again, that's, something that, hopefully they can do with an off season and something we kind of missed out on last year. And, hopefully we don't have as much as transfers in and out as we possibly could, just to kind of keep that. I think, it's part of the Carolina way of just kind of, and Hubert's talked about it in his press conference, wanting guys here that want to be here, that, we're not just going to go take anybody, but we want the guys that want to be here, aren't going to just jump ship at the first sight of adversity. So, I think we've covered quite a bit here, especially for a late April off-season podcast here. Feel like we should be getting close to starting the season as much as we're jumping in, talking about the roster here and stuff. We got a long ways to go yet between here and what we say July 1st, where guys have to be in the portal, and then the beginning of, I guess, school, when guys probably needed to be signed and on campus, and getting into October when practice will start and stuff like that. So we got a long ways to go. Of course, other stuff to watch concerning Carolina guys would be the NBA draft with Day'Ron Sharpe in there. NBA playoffs will be coming up. We'll watch for Tar Heels that have a chance to bring another.
Reggie Bullock is having a great season.
Trophy. Yeah, I mean, I keep seeing Harrison Barnes putting up big numbers too, and I haven't seen Justin Jackson if he's played with his new team. He just got signed with the Bucks, 2-way deal, I think. Obviously Danny Green on the 76ers. Probably let's see, I'm trying to think here who's got maybe the best chance to win a championship. He's probably got the biggest role on a team that has a chance to win a championship. So, So I don't know, unless you got any last words here to end out April and I guess officially start the off season. I think 300 here says it good. Win, lose, or draw, it's always Tar Heel Nation forever. He says later, my guys. So
I was just about to say, that sums it up, man. That's how I'm feeling too.
So Gil, thanks for jumping on here. I kind of hit you up pretty late here this week, and
it's all good, man. I appreciate it.
Coming
it's been
on,
an interesting off season so far, and hopefully we get another great addition to the team in the coming weeks or months, and I'm looking forward to it when it rolls back around.
Yeah,
so then I'd say go Heels.
Hey, that's my But before we do say that, if you made it to this part of the podcast, make sure you're subscribed so you get them. If you want to join us in a live at some point, be asking questions as we're going. We don't always just kind of go off the comments here, but I think it was fun.
Appreciate those comments. Appreciate everybody tuning in live.
It was good. So if you want to do that, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, UNC Hoops Talk on YouTube, and hit that little bell so that you get notified when we go live, because we have no schedule when we go to this. We just I hit Gil up late and he's like, oh yeah, I can do that. And we jump on and do it. But I do appreciate it. And I appreciate all the comments, all the guys that joined us here. And until next time, go Heels.